You're listening to the Friends Talking Nerdy Podcast Network.
Friends Talking Nerdy. If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends Talking Nerdy.
So my stars were just sitting there, and my stars, I can't believe the words that came out of her mouth in my stars. Anyway.
What are you talking about?
I had to imitate a little Bugs Bunny there. That's the voice he used when, you remember the big red monster?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love the big red monster.
Yeah, he tricked him one time into thinking he was like a manicurist, and he had the nail. Let's put our patsies in the water, and then there were like rat traps in there snapped around his hands. But during the conversation, my stars, this girl was just doing, talking like that.
Wow, that's like a deep, deep reference.
I love me some Bugs Bunny. I grew up on that.
Yeah, totally. I love Bugs Bunny too. I remember that. It must have been the last Bugs Bunny movie. Probably not. There's probably been 12 since this, but the one that came out when we were kids that was a collection of different...
They were repackaged. They had the original cartoons with a new story wraparound that kind of tied the classic cartoon selections into the overall narrative, if that makes sense. Which I think, is a unique way of doing that type of deal. And it would be interesting if you would see more of that.
Absolutely. I think it would be interesting. Way it's like the Simpsons movie is like a complete story within itself, and many of the bigger, stronger, longer, uncut.
Someone's in a mood.
Ooh. Anyway, yeah.
Indeed. Well, anyway, this is Tim the Nerd here, welcoming you to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. As usual, sitting across from me in the flatulent chair, we have the greatest legal mind in the Pacific Northwest. We have Professor Aubrey.
Hello.
Well, how has your week been going?
Oh my gosh, my week is great. It is the first week of summer break, and that's always my favorite week because it feels so delicious and out of the ordinary to be able to just do whatever I want all day. And, granted, I have work that I have to do over the summer, but the deadlines are just way cooler, like way less. Those 12-week quarters, it feels like something is coming at you constantly.
I will bet, and that is definitely a big perk in teaching jobs for, especially for folks getting paid what you're getting paid. I mean, I believe you get paid more than like an elementary school teacher, right?
I think so. I don't really know.
Okay. Yeah, it's just the pay dynamic for teachers is shit. But again, a perk. I would love to have, just, hey, Tim, you get 12 weeks. It's yours. Do what you want with it,
Yeah, I mean, when I became an instructor at a community college, I took a significant pay cut. But when I thought about it, I thought, well, I'm getting a quarter of the year off. So what's the money equivalent of that? And I considered that when I sort of added the difference to what they were offering to pay me for a more realistic kind of picture of the benefits.
Yeah, and, like you said, being able to just, I'm going to go to the beach today, bye, I'm sure that's fun.
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
Yep. Well, the cats are still here. For folks that were listening last week, we mentioned having the doors to the studio here closed, and you may have heard a noise in the background when and that I commented on, that I said the cats did. Turned out those were my Beats earpods. And they were playing with a case. One of the earpods got loose, and luckily I found it, and, no harm, no foul, but, it would have sucked being down to one earpod because they thought, ooh, toy.
Right, it would have sucked. Maybe I can use the cats to find my MIFO self-charging earbuds that I also lost one somewhere. And I think it'll turn up eventually in the cat's exploration.
Just like coming, in their mouth, putting it down. What's it? Oh, I did it for you.
Right, exactly.
But, we've already experienced Mimsy going through heat once.
Oh my goodness, yes. That was quite an experience.
It was, and part of me felt really bad that she had to go through with that. In a perfect world, I would have all the money that I wanted to be able to give her all the cat cock she wants, but I can't. So hearing her being miserable, but the meows were so funny because. Cats meow to humans to imitate baby noises. They saw that certain noises get humans to react in a certain way, which is why they started meowing. And, her doing that when she's in heat, just it looks like, Mister, can I please be let outside? I need some cat cock. I want to be stuffed like a Thanksgiving turkey, Mister.
Wow. Just wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's a rainbow right outside the window.
Oh, hey, there you go.
Look at that. Look at that. That's gorgeous.
Science.
We're having what we call January in Portland right now, which is when in June it feels like January because it's so cold. And we get a lot of rain just randomly in June. And so we say you can't reliably count on it not being raining in Portland until July, the 4th of July weekend. Mm-hmm. Anytime before that, it could rain any day. And it's been raining, 2 days straight now, pretty much?
Yeah, like yesterday we even had hail, and I know somebody that was down in Milwaukee, just south of here, and I guess the hail was enough to have a small collection on the ground as if it were snow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it pretty intense. Global warming is a thing, folks.
Yeah, and, we always say that there's been outlying weather events forever, but it just seems like it's more often now, or the results are more severe. They also, the day we're recording, there was a tornado that touched down about 20 miles north of Eugene, Oregon. Mm-hmm. And I have never before heard of a tornado in Oregon. It's very out of place.
Yeah, I don't think Dorothy Gale would visit here if a tornado brought her here or something like that. But, you are correct. The evidence does show that, worldwide weather events are getting more intense, then they're getting more frequent. Mm-hmm. To be fair, I'm sure there are arguments on either side, I guess, that you can make. But, I'm confident in stating that climate change is a real thing. It is not some scientific conspiracy theory to keep people communist. There is direct evidence to mankind screwing with the planet and the planet having negative effects happening. Now, with stuff like the ozone layer, the reason they don't talk about the ozone layer is that people actually took responsibility and made changes to fix it, and that has been healed.
Right, but the problem is, I don't know, it may be an apt comparison because the problem with the hole in the ozone was that there was a lot of ozone here at the ground level, which is also smog, but there was not enough ozone up in the stratosphere where it's necessary to help protect us against radiation from this, sun. So, what ended up happening to deal with that was that something happened that was interesting. And then I started to tell a story about it, and then I forgot what I was saying.
Well, in regards to, environmentalism and all that.
Oh, right, the hole in the ozone layer.
Yeah.
So it was being caused mostly by aerosols and HCFCs and chemicals. And when we were using those things, it was causing a depletion of ozone in the stratosphere. So what we did was agree with all the other countries on the planet that we were not going to use the same kind of HCFC aerosolization anymore. And that's when you saw suddenly everything was in a pump spray instead of an aerosol, until they figured out, we can make less toxic aerosol. Mm-hmm. All the countries agreed that they would ban these substances. And what happened was that other substances had to be developed to take the place of that in the marketplace, because it was obviously something that people wanted and needed. So the same exact thing could happen with regard to climate change. Like if all the countries agree, okay, we need to reduce our CO2 by X amount by what date, and they have to come up with a plan that shows that how they're going to do that. That would allow us to address the problem. But because none of the countries are willing to say, I see an answer. And so I'm going to join with other countries.
Yeah, and when you have the rich moneyed interest around the world, showing, again and again and again that they will do anything and everything to keep their hands on their money, you're not going to get the countries to agree, because at the end of the day, the rich people are the ones that are going to get their voices heard first.
That's right.
Yep. On that note. But that is, yeah.
It's just kind of the state of the world right now.
We're in a unique spot in history, folks. I mean, most definitely. I mean, just even during the course of the show, the amount of, insane news events that have popped up is, we're in unique times. I can understand why people would not want to have children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want to have kids. And I think I haven't wanted to have kids since I was 16, and I realized what fucks humans have been, both to each other, other animals, and to the planet. Mm-hmm. And was kind of like, okay, fuck people.
Well, on that note, do you want to talk about music festivals?
I'd love to. This is like the only time I can stand people.
Yeah, we're having an interesting month here of programs that are being created and curated by Professor Aubrey. Do you want to let the folks know about the theme for the month?
Yeah, so you may have heard me talk on the show before about going to different festivals. Festivals like the Oregon Country Fair and Burning Man, those types of places where people get together to celebrate something and experience things together. Mm-hmm. So I thought what I could do, since I'm going to the Oregon Country Fair for the next 2 weeks, is to help our listeners understand why it's cool to go to festivals, and then what tips for camping at festivals, because in most festivals you not only have some entertainment and some experiential things going on, but you also live on site, and everybody lives on site, and it's some people call a group of people who are stick with each other for an experience a container. So a festival can be a container for a lot of really amazing interactions that only happen during those festivals.
Kind of like going back in history to the most well-known example, thanks to the movie, Woodstock.
Yeah.
I mean, people hung out on Max Yasgur's farm, camped out there for the 3 days, and...
But it was, Woodstock was the opposite, or maybe it was the beginning of people learning what a festival should be about and how you should run it, by being the absolutely worst executed idea ever in rock music, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason it's looked back on fondly now is because of the movie, which was edited by Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, that movie's really, really good.
I've mentioned it before, but I did have a chance to see the director's cut of Woodstock on the big screen in Grand Rapids, and that was quite the experience. That's when they put back in Janis Joplin's performance, and seeing that on the big screen, damn, if you get a chance to... you get a chance to hear her sing, period, whether it's Apple Music in your earbuds or watching a performance of hers on the big screen or your TV. Do it. She was one of the most captivating female performers in rock history, and it is sad that she's a part of that horrible 27 Club.
Yeah, it really is really is sad.
Yeah. But how many music festivals have you been to, or similar type of things? Because, like Soak or Burning Man aren't necessarily a music festival, though music may be there, but it's still the same type of deal that you mentioned, of people camping out over an extended period to share an experience.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's festivals like Bonnaroo in Tennessee. They're very diverse kinds of festivals. So like Bonnaroo is major headlining bands, a lot of them playing for 3 days in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. There's a festival called the Michigan Women's Music Festival.
Never heard of that. Huh? I never heard of that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's very famous because it's very... it's full of TERFs now, trans excluding feminists, because you have to be born a woman in order to go to it. Yeah. But it was really popular for, from the 60s onward until people started caring about trans issues, which was probably 2000, not that long ago, when... there was sort of a separation of people between those who were going to stay with the Michigan Women's Music Festival and those who were going to leave. And they actually founded a separate camp for anybody that wanted to come that identified as female. So, festivals are very diverse. Another one might be an arts and crafts fair that lasts several days, a historic reenactment that lasts several days, sort of anything where you have this nice container of people who share an experience. That's what a festival is to me.
Another example would be, and I don't know if he does these anymore, but Willie Nelson's 4th of July picnics in Texas.
Exactly. That's the kind of thing.
Yeah, and, he was always proud of the fact that those gatherings of his were able to bring such diverse people together to enjoy music. Your accountants, your bikers, your country, guy with a cowboy hat who only listens to both type of music,
Mm-hmm. Country and Western.
Yes, I got that joke in on my sister's podcast.
I know, I heard that. I was impressed.
Yeah, the only joke I got left in.
That was heavily edited, Colleen. Wow. Every time Tim made a joke, he told me what the joke was, and I don't blame you at all for kicking them out of your podcast.
Shut up. They were funny.
They were very blue.
They were
as
hilarious.
My grandmother would say.
Hilarious.
Blue.
Yeah. Anyway, as they say on Colling's home planet.
That was one of them, right? So shouldn't that be? Would you, if it was your show, leave that joke in?
Me? Yeah.
No, if you were her.
Yeah. I mean, I've done it before.
No, I mean somebody making such a mean joke about you on your podcast.
what's said is said. When the microphone goes on,
I take no responsibility.
Yeah. Exactly, but
Okay, well, let's talk about what reasons why you might want to go to a festival.
yes, we found an article here that's going to be kind of our launching point from a website called Beat. As usual for topics like this, we will have the link to that article in our show notes, so you can go give it a visit and give it a deeper dive. Because, I want to make it clear, anytime we use material from other sites, we're going to do our best to, say where we got it from, so we can do our part to spread the love on what people do. Because, I've worked for online websites before, and it does take a lot of work to put up content that is going to be going away within a day, 2, 3, 4, 5 days from now, because new stuff has to constantly be up.
Yeah. Speaking of, this article itself is 6 years old. And, I know it's good to get like the latest, greatest version of something, but I read it and I wouldn't say that the 6 years between when it was written and now has really changed the analysis.
Exactly. So we're going to go through it. I'll go through the bullet points here. The professor will give her thoughts on the bullet points, and we'll go from there. Are you ready?
Yes.
Bullet point number 1. Okay, so for the first and most obvious reason, it's just really cool. Explain that.
Yeah, so it is just really cool. Like, you will come out of it with cool stories. It is... It's an experience that lasts several days, that you can fill with different kinds of activities. And it's just a really cool experience, like the bullet point says.
Yeah, it's not like with the concert, if you buy tickets to a concert at the Moda Center, for example, here in Portland, Oregon. That's where the Portland Trailblazers play. You're looking at maybe a 2-hour experience. If it's someone like Bruce Springsteen, maybe a little longer. But it's one set amount of time, and once that time is done, everybody disperses. And with music festival, to your point, you have, camping. You have meeting up with fellow campmates in different campsites. You have different eating experiences. You have different, experiences in terms of the entertainment you see. There's just so much more to do. So what would you say what's the first memory that comes to mind as the most coolest experience you've encountered at a music type festival?
Whoa. Probably I'd say my favorite thing that happened at Burning Man last year was watching the thousands of drones in the night sky on a completely flat desert plain do an amazingly choreographed light show. It was 10 stories tall. It was huge. And it was just larger than anything I'd ever seen people kind of controlling in a coordinated way. Other than computers, right? Like free moving things that are being controlled, like radio controlled stuff.
Yeah, and I can imagine the precision needed to make sure they don't crash into each other. Those things are not cheap.
No.
Like, we sold them at Apple, and at minimum, you're dropping $1,000. And that's not even, you gotta get an FAA license to use one. Granted, it's only $25. You're not breaking the bank for it, but that's an extra thing to keep in mind too, because you don't want to unnecessarily fly into, restricted airspace or something,
Oh yeah, totally. And that's actually one of the big things that is found in people's cars, that they're not allowed to have. The number one thing is a drone. A non-registered drone, meaning it's not registered with Burning Man as an official drone that can be let in. Cool. Because why wouldn't, if you had a drone, what a great place just to drone around, even just to be like, I wonder if there's a long line there. You just fly over there and see, right?
Is there a line for the bathroom?
Right?
And if it were Obama, he'd, just clear the line with drones sending missiles or something. But anyway, I have to use the bathroom, folks. Anyway, number 2 here. You get to meet tons of new people. You've encountered a bunch of folks. What type of eccentric characters have you encountered at the music festival type of situation?
The people are amazing. So whatever your interest is bringing you to that festival. All the people around you are interested in the same thing. So at Burning Man, people are really interested in art, creative expression, leave no trace, ethics, other ethics like we talked about last week when we talked about the 10 principles of Burning Man. Mm-hmm. So it's a bunch of like-minded people hanging out together for 3 or 4 days. And so you have something in common with everyone around you. And that thing is something that is really important to you and that you really care about. So you just have an automatic intimacy with people at a festival that you wouldn't, say, at a concert. Right? It's more of an immersive experience. And there's just, a certain kind of person likes that kind of thing. And so people get along really well and everybody's really nice at a festival. Sometimes, I've met some people who have been some of the most amazing people I've ever met, and I met them at a festival.
Nice.
Yeah. So, for example, I met a woman just randomly, and we just started talking, and then every day she would stop by, we would have a chat, and it felt like this, real relationship in real time that we were having, even knowing that after the festival, we probably weren't going to keep in touch. But it's that immediacy of you're enjoying something really a lot, and this other person is next to you enjoying it just as much.
Like workmates, classmates, warmates, you share that individualized experience based on your common whatever, but you do have different interests outside of that area.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like bikers and
accountants
and yeah.
Well, come on, I'm sure there's a group of Hell's Angels accountants out there getting really pissed at us and wanting to beat us with biker chains, We have an accountant here, bitch. Anyway. All right, the next bullet point here. There are so many different artists to see, and we can take that in a broad scope here because, as the article mentions, they're referring more towards music festivals, but even at music festivals, you're going to have, like artists selling their wares. You're going to have jewelry makers. You're going to have, like tattoo artists there. You're going to have maybe a fake tattoo artist there or something like that. There's going to be all kinds of interesting art that's out there, and art comes in a lot of different forms. It's not, visual art. It's not audio art. It's art in general.
Yeah, it could be performance art, could be, you can be acting in so many ways at a festival. Mm-hmm. And at festivals like Burning Man, one of the things that happens is people come up with ideas of how to entertain each other. And so there's some of that at every festival where the participants are trying to make each other's experience even better by maybe providing some kind of amenity at their campsite or doing a free food night or something like that where they cook up hamburgers or whatever. Mm-hmm. So
the artists, the different types of artists that you see there.
Right. There's a great diversity of artists that do festivals. So let's say I'm into bluegrass and I want to go to a bluegrass festival. I'm going to be surrounded by people who also like bluegrass, so I'm going to be having a good time. And I'm going to get to experience 20 different bluegrass artists, some of which maybe I've never heard of. And so I'm going to expand my repertoire. Yeah. And there's a price issue as well. So I went to see Lizzo at the Moda Center. I had a middling ticket. Like, it wasn't a bad ticket, but it wasn't a good ticket.
Yeah.
And, which it was beautifully fine. The tickets were fine. But, it was around $200 a person to do that.
Oof.
Yeah. Then she came out on HBO Max, maybe, with the concert, only with people like Missy Elliott joining her. And I watched it on the TV here at the house, which is fairly large, like a 48-inch TV maybe. And I was like, that was just like being there. Except I got to, like, be naked on my couch.
There you go.
I mean, was there energy in the audience? Yeah, but it wasn't the same kind of energy you get at a festival. But so for $162, I mean, a ticket to Soak, I believe last year at least was $140. And, you know, have way more fun, 3 or 4 days, meet cool people, all the things I've been talking about that are great about festivals. You get to do that for the same amount of money it would cost you to go to a 2-hour concert.
And speaking of that, that kind of ties in with the next bullet point here, so we will dive into that, and that is traveling. You know, Portland, Oregon is a big city, but not everything comes here. You know, you can't have a desert festival in Portland, Oregon. You know, you have to go to where the desert is. So what has some of your traveling experiences been like?
Well, I have done some traveling where I went to festivals, including probably the earliest one was when I drove to Michigan to go to a women's music festival.
Lilith Fair?
Called Lilith Fair. That was in the arms of the angel.
Yeah, like Sarah McLachlan, Paula Cole, you know.
Yeah, that sort of. I want to know right now.
Melissa Etheridge?
Melissa Etheridge, yeah. So basically, it was like a dyke party, essentially. And at the time, I had just come out as a queer person, and so I was going there with my, you know, it was a terrible story. So I had a girlfriend I was in love with, and we broke up. I broke up with her, and I regretted it, but she would not engage in a relationship with me again, you know, which she totally had the right to not do that, but I was sad about it. But we were going to try to be friends, and we had planned this trip to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan from Tennessee to go on together, and we decided to go ahead and go on it together. And
I bet that was fun.
Boy, was that eye-opening. That was eye-opening. You know, it was awful, and I should have never done it. And I would never do something like that again. But we stopped along the way at Lilith Fair and had a really good time. But again, that wasn't really a music festival like we have now, because it was, I think it's like a day-long thing. Like you didn't camp on site.
Yeah.
It might have been 2 days maybe, but you had to find a hotel. So that's probably my longest trip to a festival. I've traveled to Black Rock City, which is in the Black Rock Desert in Nevada, and that's about 6 hours away from here. So that's pretty far away as well. But I never would have gone there, ever, without Burning Man. Never would have gone to the Black Rock Desert. Like, there's nothing to bring you there. It's just a giant, flat, alkaline desert.
Tumbleweeds going everywhere.
No, because there's no, it's so, there's so much wind. It's so dusty that, and the dust is airborne everywhere. So it's not exactly like a sandy desert, but there's no vegetation at all.
Which kind of ties into the next bullet point here, and that is variety. Now, you've already alluded to it multiple times already, but, you know, explain variety. When you think of a festival or a gathering like a soak or something like that, what is the variety like? Like, what was your schedule on any particular day?
Oh, in terms of different things to do. Well, at Burning Man, there was all kinds of wild things to do. So, in the desert, right, you're there, you're sweating all the time, you're covered in dust. And unless your camp has a shower or you're working there and are provided showers, you don't get to take a shower for however long you're there. And so people would do things like manicures and pedicures that really were just kind of washing people's feet and washing people's hands.
Yeah.
Getting your hair washed by someone, which was very popular because you can't let any water get on the ground. So you have to collect everything in tubs and collect it all in buckets and then put it in a gray water system. And it's just like everything is so hard. And so the effect of doing those things together creates for a great variety. I could go on and on. I just gave you 2 examples, but there are so much different things to do at a giant festival like Burning Man. But even at other festivals, there's a huge variety of things to do. You could go listen to music. You could hang out at your camp. You could hang out at somebody else's camp. You could have a party amongst multiple camps. You could eat food. You could go to informational booths. Mm-hmm. You could go to merchandise booths. Like there's always going to be multiple things going on, even if it's not a Burning Man type festival. Gotcha.
All right, and then you've already alluded to it here. So let's go to the next bullet point, if I can actually speak. 6, you get to experience some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I've seen some amazing things, like I talked about the drones. They do this thing at Burning Man called the Thunderdome, where there's battle inside a dome that you can climb up and look. It's just very like Beyond Thunderdome. That's really fun to watch. Tons of dance events where you can watch people dancing as well as watch DJs and listen to different DJs. There are all kinds of camps that might give you different kinds of food. And so there's just lots of things to do.
Indeed. Pretty straightforward. And I think, we've already talked about a lot of the variety of stuff in terms of different types of music and whatnot. So last but not least, and again, we've already touched upon this somewhat already, the memories, the experience. And we've used the analogy of like war buddies or work buddies or school buddies or something like that. But yet having, shared memories with a group of people like that in intense circumstances that sometimes in terms of physical living compared to what people are normally used to, you got those memories probably stay fresh in your mind as if they happened yesterday.
Yeah. They do, and those relationships continue even if you don't have any contact with each other between one annual festival and the next year. You have this closeness and uniqueness to your relationship where it can just restart the next year at the festival. And then it just restarts, and you get more and more intimate as the years go by. And you end up having spent 10, 12, 20, 30 years with the same group of people. Like, that's an amazing way to build community as well.
Is this your new religion?
Is it, you think?
The main pull for religion is getting a community of people. And a community of people that share your likes and values and interest and all that.
Yeah, it's way more fun than church, I guess, is the thing I'd say. And it's much more about joy and love between humans and between humans and animals and between humans and the earth. And those kind of values are very common at festivals. Like, that's the kind of person who goes to festivals. Is somebody who can get along with other people. People who aren't interested in other people would never go to a festival because that's what it is.
Have you been to a festival, Tim? No.
Would you ever consider going to a festival, Tim?
It would depend. I mean, if it was like a music festival and there were a number of bands that I would want to see, I would really consider it. But
Okay, let's say there's a music festival. It's in Texas, and it's Megatron.
Megatron.
I know, that's not a band. I was just joking.
I will get you
Metallica.
Optimus
Okay, so there's
Prime.
Metallica, Motorhead.
They're bringing Lemmy back from the dead for this festival. Damn right, I'm going to be there.
Ozzy Osbourne. These are the three people that are playing that festival. Would you go?
Only 3 people. No, I mean, like back in the day for.
You're like, I wouldn't go to Motorhead, Metallica, and what was the other one?
Ozzy.
And Ozzy.
I mean, I wouldn't go to Texas for it. I mean, if it was like in Oregon, in like Eugene or Astoria or something wacky, or Salem or something like that, I'd go to it in a heartbeat. But traveling across the country for just 3 bands, no. But if it were something like in the 90s, early 2000s, Ozzy Osbourne had a metal festival called Ozfest.
Oh, right, I remember that.
Yeah, and if that were near me, I would go in a heartbeat because, again, they had a number of classic metal bands, but they also had a lot of new stuff out there.
Yeah. And that's what you'll see at festivals, too. It'll expose you to new music or new activities or new ways of thinking that you never would have.
More than anything, I mean, I think one common theme we have on this show here is we support the arts. The arts come in a lot of different and unique ways. I mean, sometimes you can make some great money off of it. Sometimes it's called a hobby. But the arts are a beautiful thing and should be celebrated from the smallest creator on up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because, I mean, again, art can be a business, and that should not, you should not be naive and not think of that and not, prepare yourself for the future. But if you're only doing it for the money, why? I mean, I would love to make money on this podcast.
Right, because you're saying it's easier to make money doing something else than it is to make music or make money doing art.
Yeah.
And that's true in our society because our society does not value art or artists. In other societies, they do, right? And art and artists are revered and taken care of so that they can continue to make art. As opposed to Western approach, which is just, to the highest bidder.
Yeah, wring them dry for as much money as they can generate and continue to screw them by cutting their royalties.
Right.
I mean, and that even goes for, most of the big name artists too. I mean, they're not getting much royalties when you listen to their music on streaming.
Right.
But hey, Taylor Swift can't buy a platinum bathtub wing.
I know, right? Poor things.
Yeah.
The poor rock stars.
Well, any more thoughts on music festivals? I mean, obviously, the big, the Too Long Didn't Read version is go to one. But what would you have to say to somebody that's considering it for the first time?
Well, I mean, I think one way to think about it is the opportunity cost of going to something like that. What are you going to be doing with your time if you're not doing that? What are you giving up if you go to a 3-day festival? You're giving up those 3 days to try something new. What were you going to do with them? You were probably going to sit around and watch TV. I know you. And if you're a friend of ours, that's probably what you would do.
Hey, they're our audience. Come on.
That was a self...
I know.
Yeah. So it costs you really nothing in terms of opportunity cost. It doesn't really cost that much in money if you have camping supplies already. And that's a, little note about the future, which is next week we're going to be talking about camping at festivals and what kind of gear you need and different tips and tricks for camping at festivals, because that's a whole nother ball of wax, right? It's the festival ticket, but you also have to have your kit for camping.
Yeah, and camping, like traveling cross country on train, is not something you want to spend as little money as possible on, because the experience is going to be a lot different. You do got to take into account like how you sleep, for instance. And if you were the type of person that does like a certain bit of foam with their bed or something like that, getting a very basic sleeping bag and just lying it on the ground, probably not going to be a good experience. So you want to, spend the money in the right way, in the most effective way, to get the materials you need to make the experience as easy as possible for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So long story short, definitely go live life, have experiences. Experiences cannot always go the way you intended, but they're still stories that define who you are.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I'd rather have experiences than almost anything else.
Yep. Better than marriage, ew.
Right?
Anyway.
That's not a festival.
No, a festival of hate, maybe. All right, I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you all for listening once again. Each Saturday, we'll have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
Farewell.
Hey, let's go to the campsite.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.